Welcome to the webinar on the Amalgatome technology. Today we'll be talking about maximizing split thickness skin recovery using this technology. And we wanted to give a thanks to our sponsor today, which is Exsurco Medical. For those of you not familiar with Exsurco, they've been long stewards of this industry with their Amalgatome technology. And they'd like to present this webinar for us today so we can all maximize the gift of skin donation. A little bit about our faculty for today. I wanted to introduce to you our speaker and subject matter expert today. Amber McAfee will be presenting the bulk of the content from today's webinar, and many of you probably know Amber because of her extensive experience in this industry of tissue banking and organ recovery. In addition to being a steward of this industry, as you might know, Amber serves as the Director of Sales for the Tissue Bank and Life Sciences Division at Exsurco Medical. Additionally, she has formal roles in our industry. She has served as the Executive Director for the International Society for Organ Preservation for the last 7 years. So we're really thrilled to have Amber with us today and to impart her knowledge to all of us. So thank you, Amber. We appreciate your joining us. And now a little bit about me. My name is Deb Kurtz. I'm going to be the moderator and facilitator for today's event. And I'm an expert in the healthcare industry in general. And I help companies on the commercial side of their operations with sales and marketing strategies. So now what I'd like to do is officially go over our learning objectives for today and ask Amber to take us through what we're going to learn today. Amber, can you take it away?
Thank you, Deb. Thank you again for everyone who's joined. This is our agenda and everything we will cover in this hour with questions at the end. We'll go over device components, assembly instructions, skin recovery, operating the depth gauge, taking the device apart, disinfection and sterilization, and some troubleshooting and other items of resource and reference for you. We'll do questions at 2 periods throughout the webinar. Device components. Transportation case. Do not discard this case. It is the only form validated for shipping. Use this case to return to Exsurco for any service or repair. Complete Amalgatome MD system. Power supply. This does not go into the autoclave. Care should be taken not to drop or damage. Do not plug any other power sources into the power supply for use for any other purpose. Sterilization tray. Inside the tray are pictures where each component should be placed for sterilization. Ensure the blade locking ring is placed inside the tray with the screw heads facing upward. Ensure the power cord is wrapped around the brackets located on the outside of the tray. Head assembly. The Amalgatome MD head assembly is validated to stay together at all times. Leave as is and do not disassemble the knob or any of the associated parts. Taking apart the Amalgatome MD head assembly could cause the device to not function properly. Handpiece. When the handpiece is not in use, it is best practice to cover the plug with the protective end cap. This helps protect it from dirt and debris. Use caution to ensure the handpiece and pinion is not dropped or damaged. Do not immerse the entire handpiece with power cord under running water or sit it completely in water for any length of time. Never immerse the power cord. Blade. Always check the sterile blade package integrity and expiration date before use. Disposable blade is provided to you as a sterile single-use product. When handling the blade, it is best practice to always hold it on the outside edge. There is a warning noted on the package that the blade is sharp, and the inside of the blade is where the sharp area is. When the term sterile operator is used, this refers to the technician who has followed protocols for scrubbing, gowning, and gloving and is practicing sterile technique. When the term circulator is used, this refers to the technician who is not scrubbed in and is providing support within the recovery room. Assembly instructions. Plugging in the Amalgatome MD to the electrical outlet. Place the Amalgatome MD power supply on a table or cart outside of the sterile field. Make sure it is placed on a sturdy, safe surface to protect from damage or fall. Make certain the power switch is in the off position. Connect the power supply end to the back of the power supply. Connect the power supply plug end to the electrical outlet. Assembly of the head onto the handpiece. Ensure the device is not plugged into the power supply. Hold the handpiece in an upright position with the pinion facing upward and the activation lever facing the operator. Insert the pinion end of the handpiece into the housing on the head of the device, making sure to align the key and slot. Hand tighten the locking knob clockwise until it stops. Do not over tighten. Let's see that again. Note, be sure the key and slot are aligned and always tighten by turning the locking knob. Opening the blade. Always check the package integrity and expiration date before use. Using the peel pack end with the chevron shape, pull open the packaging, allowing the sterile operator to reach inside and grab the blade. Let's see that again. It is best practice to have the package opened for the sterile operator. To remove the blade, hold the plastic tray where the hand symbols are and gently press your thumbs at the arrow markings. When handling the blade, it is best practice to always hold it on the outside edge. Never hold the blade like this. Installing the blade. Before installing the disposable blade, set the depth gauge to the closed position as shown. Turn the Amalgatome MD lever side down. Place the disposable blade into the housing. Slightly turn the outer edge of the blade to ensure proper seating. Place the blade locking ring into the housing, lining up the captive screws with the screw holes on the housing. Tighten into place using the screwdriver until the screw grips and do not over tighten. Note, the 3 captive screws should remain in the blade locking ring at all times. Plugging in the Amalgatome handpiece to the power supply. The sterile operator passes the protective end cap from the handpiece cord off of the sterile field. Remove the protective cap from the end of the handpiece power cord. Plug it into the power supply by aligning the red dots. Once the sterile operator has installed the blade and is ready to turn the power on, turn the power supply switch to the on position. The Amalgatome MD skin recovery device is now ready for use. Mapping the donor for skin recovery. It is a best practice to take a moment at the start of the procedure to plan your recovery to maximize the gift of skin donation. The areas shaded in blue are the common skin recovery sites. The areas shaded in orange are the potential additional recovery sites with the Amalgatome MD. Pull the Amalgatome MD in a comfortable direction to allow for you to maneuver smoothly over the contours of the body, not pushing hard to reach areas. Thickness settings. If the tissue is not behaving as you think it should, adjust the depth settings. Applying less or more pressure to achieve desired results is not recommended. Be sure to recover the widest, longest skin possible as in accordance with your processor protocols. If you start a skin graft and it does not meet the desired thickness and width, it may be best to stop recovering that graft and start a new one. If you have a skin graft with excellent width, but it is too thin or too thick, you do not have to stop the recovery. Simply turn the depth knob to the new desired setting. If it is your first time, or you're training someone new to the Amalgatome MD, it can be best practice to recover the lateral abdomen first. This allows the new user to get used to the recovery technique in the lateral abdomen area first, which is often a difficult area to recover. Next, as the user moves medial towards the spine, the grafts are better and better in areas where recovery is often easier. Recovery guidelines and technique reminders. Depth settings. Please note, this chart is meant to be a guide. Your depth setting will depend on the donor demographics and processor protocols. Depth settings. Please note, this chart is meant to be a guide. Your depth setting will depend on the donor demographics and processor protocols. Operation. Setting the depth gauge. The Amalgatome MD depth gauge is designed to have a functional range of 0 thousandths of an inch to 45 thousandths of an inch. However, the recommended excision depth range are settings between 5 thousandths of an inch to 40 thousandths of an inch. Recovering skin grafts within 5 thousandths of an inch to 40 thousandths of an inch excision depth range ensures skin graft accuracy to the setting reflected on the depth adjustment knob. Adjust depth settings to the desired thickness by turning the depth adjustment knob. Settings on the depth adjustment knob indicate increments of 1 thousandths of an inch and will cover a range of 5 thousandths of an inch to 40 thousandths of an inch. Note, the depth settings are a guide, and the resulting skin graft will depend on donor demographics and processor protocols. Do not disassemble the depth gauge assembly at any time. If done so, factory recalibration would be required. Activating the device and safety switch. When ready to operate the Amalgatome MD, press the activation lever down onto the handle. This will put the instrument into ready mode. While the activation lever is depressed, a firm grip is kept on the instrument. Press the activation button located at the end of the handpiece next to the power cord. This will cause the blade to rotate. Note, if the instrument is not activated within 4 to 7 seconds, the lever must be released and re-engaged to reset the ready timer. This is for safety purposes and does not allow the device to accidentally be activated if placed lever side down. Releasing the lever will deactivate the device. Recovery guidelines. Position the head of the device at the desired starting point, using a slight downward pressure to ensure the cutting edge of the blade maintains contact with the recovery site. Only light pressure is required. Once the cutting starts, move the device head in the desired direction. Maintain a steady speed to ensure desired graft thickness and width is recovered. Let's do that again. Notice the operator is adjusting the depth gauge during the recovery. As the skin graft emerges from the device head, the following options can be used to collect the recovered graft. Option 1. Use a forceps to gently lift the skin graft as it emerges from the device head. Option 2. Allow the skin graft to lie along the recovery site. When the recovery is complete, lift the device off the recovery site. Do not stretch or pull the skin graft. Attempting to keep the instrument too flat may inadvertently cause the operator to lift the cutting edge away from the recovery site. When too much pressure is applied, the sound of the motor will change to a higher pitch, and it will sound like it is overworking. The depth gauge plate on the instrument is designed to flatten the skin as it approaches the cutting edge of the blade.
Now lift up.
Remember, you do not need much angle on the device.
Go higher. Now lay back down.
Keep the device as flat as possible. The movement is more scraping. Stop. Use a slow, steady speed. Moving too fast does not allow the user to adjust to body contours or irregularities in the tissue during use. This results in crescent moon-shaped patterns or uneven thickness in the skin grafts. A slow, steady speed is required. Moving too fast with the Amalgatome MD skin recovery device does not allow the user to adjust to body contours or irregularities in tissue during use. It may be tempting that while a good graft is in motion to turn a corner or move in another direction. resulting in an S, L, or V-shaped graft. There is a chance this could result in discard. If the lubricant has dried in an area after you have applied it, you may need to reapply. The blade may not immediately cut the skin, or it will feel like it is skipping or grabbing. Move the depth setting to the desired depth before turning the device on. Remember, begin a steady pace to recover the skin once you have an initial full cut. Then maintain that same pace. The device was designed for ease of use. You do not have to push hard to recover the thickness you desire. If the skin appears too thin or too thick during the recovery, you can change the depth setting during the recovery. There is a 15-degree angle built into the handle, so the operator does not need to hold the Amalgatome MD at an angle to recover a skin graft. Applying too much angle. Holding too flat. This is proper technique. The device cuts with the trailing edge of the blade. Pressing down on the leading edge may lift the cutting edge away from the desired recovery site. Best practices for depth settings during recovery. If you start a skin graft and it does not meet the desired thickness and width, it may be best to stop recovering that graft and start a new one. Best practices for proper angle during recovery. Notice the operator is ensuring the proper 3 to 4 inches, or 8 to 10 centimeters, recovery of a skin graft by ensuring the diameter of the blade is in contact with the recovery site. The operator also ensured the edges are uniform and not shattered. Skin graft not uniform or too thick and narrow in the middle. The depth gauge plate on the instrument is designed to flatten the skin as it approaches the cutting edge. The operator does not need to provide additional pressure or too much angle on the device. This will cause the tissue to compress itself into the device, resulting in skin grafts that are thick in the middle and thin on the edges, and too narrow. Best practices for uniform edges on a skin graft. A slow, steady speed is required. Moving too fast with the Amalgatome MD skin recovery device does not allow the user to adjust to body contours or irregularities in tissue during use. Best practices on the posterior torso. Notice the operator is allowing the depth gauge to flatten the skin prior to the blade cut. The operator can change the depth setting during the recovery without stopping. Best practices on the anterior torso and buttocks. Notice the operator is ensuring the proper 4-inch or 10 centimeters recovery of the skin graft by ensuring the diameter of the blade is in contact with the recovery area. Best practices on the legs. Notice the operator is not applying too much pressure and using different areas on the head to recover great skin grafts. The assist recovery technician is not pulling too tight on the recovered skin graft. Inadvertently dissected skin graft during recovery. Remember, the blade cuts with a trailing edge, and attempting to keep the instrument too flat may inadvertently cause the operator to lift the cutting edge away from the recovery site. The sound of the motor will change, and it will sound like it is overworking. Crescent-shaped appearance in the skin graft. A slow, steady speed is required. Moving too fast with the Amalgatome MD skin recovery device does not allow the user to adjust to body contours or irregularities in tissue during use. This results in crescent, moon-shaped patterns or uneven thickness of skin grafts, turning the device in multiple directions, resulting in odd-shaped grafts. It may be tempting that while a good graft is in motion, to turn a corner or move in another direction, resulting in an S, L, or V-shaped graft. There is a chance this could result in discard. See the red circle. This area would not be able to be processed according to length and width requirements for the end user. We recommend avoiding this. Recovering in one straight strip is best.
Okay. Here's a question. The processing agencies separate skin into zones. Buttocks are either included as part of the leg or part of the back. That comes from the LifeNet Health Organization, and I'll read that again to let everybody know. Processing agencies separate the skin into zones. The buttocks is included as part of the leg or part of the back. If the person who wrote that answer wants to let me know what to let your agencies do, I can let you know. Typically, in the recoveries I have been on, when they map the donor, they're keeping it with the back recovery. What type of lubrication is best? We do not require a specific lubrication. We will allow you, or our manual says that mineral oil is acceptable, as well as CHG solution. However, we have found through the years that if you use CHG solution, you want to dilute it 50% with a sterile water or saline. Additionally, with the CHG solution, the brand Hibiclens with the red dye and perfume is not as desired to be used as a lubricant. It can be more sticky. So use a CHG without a dye, and remember to dilute it 50% with a sterile water. When is the amalgatome in need of calibration? The amalgatome does not need calibration unless there is an event-related activity that causes it to not perform properly. In other words, if someone were to drop it, or during a recovery the skin isn't coming out as desired, no matter what setting you have the device set at, it should probably come in for repair and an overview. But we do not specifically require an annual rotation of calibration with our device. As long as everything is functioning and has been taken apart, you should not need calibration. What is the max width? The max width is 4 inches in diameter, as long as you have the diameter of the blade in contact with the skin. And the max depth it will cut is up to 45 thousandths of an inch. In regards to the processing agencies separating the buttock skin recovery, we encourage, this is from LifeNet Health, we encourage the skin recovery to be a maximizing of 4 inches from the start to the end of the skin graft. Okay, don't worry, I will cover that. Next question, can you clarify what setting the depth gauge should be at when adding or removing the blade? We've been told 0.3 thousandths of an inch, but the webinar stated 0. Anything less than 3 thousandths of an inch is safe to insert the blade. you can go all the way to 0, or if you're less than 3/1000 of an inch, the depth plate and the sharpness of the blade edge would be so flush with one another that you would not be at risk of injuring yourself when inserting the blade. Okay, keep the questions coming. I'm going to continue with disassembly, and I will take more at the end.
Disassembly instructions. Unplugging the Amalgatome MD from the electrical outlet. Turn power switch into the off position. Unplug the power supply from the electrical outlet. Unplug the handpiece power cord from the power supply. Place the protective cap onto the connector. Blade removal. Before removing the disposable blade, set the depth gauge to the closed position as shown. Turn the device lever side down. Loosen all 3 captive screws using the screwdriver provided. Note: the 3 captive screws should remain in the blade locking ring at all times. Remove the disposable blade by turning the device over and let the blade fall out of the device. When handling the blade, it is best practice to always hold it on the outside edge. Discard the blade in a puncture-resistant biohazard sharps container. Disassembly of the head from the handpiece. Turn the device lever side down. Turn the locking knob to loosen and remove the housing from the handpiece. Do not disassemble the depth gauge assembly. The head assembly, excluding the blade locking ring, has been validated for sterilization and will require factory recalibration if disassembled. Remove the locking knob using the pin driver provided to unscrew the locking nut. Note: this is a left-handed thread. Sterilization options. After disinfecting, place the handpiece, head assembly, blade locking ring, screwdriver, pin driver in the Amalgatome MD sterilization tray. Ensure the power cord is wrapped around the brackets located on the outside of the tray. Ensure the blade locking ring is placed inside the tray with the screw heads facing upward. Place steam sterilization indicator strip inside the tray. Wrap the sterilization tray in CSR wrap. The size 45-inch by 45-inch or larger works best. Secure close with steam indicator tape. Label as appropriate. One of the 2 following sterilization options are validated for the Amalgatome MD. Gravity air displacement steam sterilization. Set temperature to 135 degrees Celsius for a full cycle dwell time of 10 minutes with a dry time of 30 minutes. Pre-vacuum steam sterilization. Set temperature to 132 degrees Celsius for a full cycle dwell time of 4 minutes with a dry time of 20 minutes. Please note, it is to be processed one time only per use. Disinfection and sterilization. Disinfection of the power supply. Wipe down the power supply and cord with alcohol or other stainless steel safe disinfectant. Disinfection of the head assembly. Prepare a neutral pH or instrument-safe enzymatic cleaning solution. Immerse the head assembly, blade locking ring, locking knob, locking nut, pin driver, and screwdriver, and let soak according to solution manufacturer specifications. Using a soft brush, scrub all parts with cleaning solution, with the exception of the power supply, and rinse after time suggested by solution manufacturer specifications. Rinse the head with tap water or alcohol. Wipe handpiece and cord with alcohol or disinfectant solution. Do not immerse the entire handpiece and power cord under water or any solution for any period of time. Placing Amalgatome MD inside the sterilization tray. After disinfecting, place the handpiece, head assembly, blade locking ring, screwdriver, and pin driver into the Amalgatome MD sterilization tray. Note, as the power cord is wrapped around the outside of the tray, make sure not to apply too much tension at the corners of the tray. Troubleshooting. The power supply is not operating. The following actions can be taken. Check the power cord connections. Turn the power supply off for 10 seconds and then turn back on. Check the power supply for a blown fuse. Return for service. The handpiece is not operating. The following actions can be taken. Check the blade fit. Check the handpiece connection to the power supply. Attempt with another Amalgatome MD blade. Return for service. The handpiece will not turn on. The following actions can be taken. Ensure all connections are in place and the power switch is on. Release and re-engage the activation lever, pressing the activation button within 5 seconds of re-engagement. Examine the device for defects. Return for service. The device is operating too slow. The following actions can be taken. Check the handpiece connection to the power supply. Lubricate the recovery site with mineral oil to decrease blade drag through the tissue. Return for service. Blade cutting poorly. Attempt with another Amalgatome MD blade. The blade locking ring does not fit flush against the housing. The following actions can be taken. Check the parts for defects. Return for service. The user experiences vibration. Return the device for service. Amalgatome MD Quick Reference Guide. Included with each shipment of an Amalgatome MD is a quick reference guide. This guide highlights the basic operation and handling instructions for the device. It is laminated and can be placed in an area for operators to see. We recommend all staff using the device review this to become more familiar with how this device works.
Amber, thank you for going through that very thorough and complete guide to using the Amalgatome technology. We're just going to breeze through our section here on service, repair, and returns to let you know that, of course, Exsurco stands behind all of their products. So there's a robust process for making sure your products always are working properly. You can refer to these slides or handouts should you ever have a need to get your equipment serviced. Rest assured, it all begins with placing a call to Exsurco where they make it easy on you, and their team keeps you informed every step of the way of what's going on with your returned product. So the next slide, please. What's important to note on the next slide is the one thing that you need to do to make sure your equipment is serviced properly is to make sure that it is sterilized before you send it in and that you obtain a return material authorization. This will be reminded of you when you call Exsurco's customer service, but I did want to highlight these two things. And then going on, related to a service issue might be if you have a quality concern or if you have a complaint, and rest assured that there is a very thorough process at Exsurco to handle this. And again, it begins with contacting the Exsurco customer service department, and they will walk you through this process. The contact information for how to do that occurs on the next slide, and you might want to refer to this should you have a complaint or a service issue to make sure that you know the process to get this all started. The contact information for the Exsurco team is coming up. So it all starts with calling this 800 number, and rest assured they will take care of your quality and any of your service issues. Lastly, I wanted to introduce you to the field team that is available to service Exsurco equipment. You're very familiar with Amber, as she was the subject matter expert in today's this over now to Amber, and you can contact Amber offline if we don't get to your questions today. And rest assured that we have a log of everything that everyone has typed in, so that we'll be able to get through your questions after the webinar, even if we don't get to them today. So Amber, I'm wondering if you'd like to take some questions.
Thank you. We have a question here. Is it approved for use in Canada by Health Canada? And that answer is yes. We already have 2 tissue banks in Canada using the Amalgatome MD technology. The other question is about sending in the information for CEUs. And I'm going to just advance really quick to the next slide while I'm still answering questions. Yes, you will get AATB CEUs for attending this webinar once you take the post-training quiz. And if you were a part of a conference room, just make sure the sign-in sheet gets to sales@exsurco.com with clearly printed first and last name and everyone's email address. The email links you to the quiz, and that's how you get your certificate. If you're unsure about your email coming through the webinar registration and you're sending sales@exsurco.com an email just for one person, that's okay as well. We realize that everyone wants to obtain the 1.2 hours of continuing education that we offered this month for Donate Life Month on skin recovery. And before I end, I want to speak to another tip in the field that we've come across, Cody and myself, with training. And we get this question a lot, and you may have noticed within the webinar we said that the assistant technician should not pull aggressively on the skin. And through the years since the Amalgatome MD has been used by tissue banks, we actually have begun to contradict ourselves and found that that can be quite beneficial. The 2 people who are, one being the operator and the other person being the assistant, need to work very well together and communicate, and you can have the assistant or the pulling technician use a little bit more force on the skin graft if they choose. However, a couple things you want to keep in mind. You'll want to dial down the depth setting about 3 to 5 degrees, or 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch, rather. By doing the pulling, you could be pulling the tissue up into the device, so you want to dial back the depth gauge to make sure that the desired skin graft is what's resulting from the device. Additionally, instead of the assistant holding the tip of the skin graft that's coming out of the amalgatome at the end, hold it on the sides, stretching it out to its 4-inch width. By grasping it between your index finger and your thumb on both sides of the skin graft as you're pulling it from the device, that will help the skin graft and the operator maintain a 4-inch width cut. How do you prevent chattering or variable thickness during the recovery? Excellent question. When you saw on the video the amalgatome cuts with the trailing edge of the blade, that is always in the direction of the blade cut. Essentially, at that portion, it's always going to be feeling more on the counterclockwise or the left-hand side of the device. If I'm operating where the skin graft is coming out of the device at 12 o'clock, and 6 o'clock being where the handle is, the direction of the blade cut is counterclockwise, and that is where the blade edge is dipping down into the tissue plane. On the other side of the device, the blade edge is coming up out of the tissue plane. So the chattering can happen more frequently in the direction of the blade spin. To mitigate that, you would apply a slight amount of tilt into the direction of the blade cut. It's very slight, and it will pick up a nice, straight, clean edge again. The other side you don't always have to worry about because the blade is cutting up from the tissue plane. Is there a recommended shipping preservation solution? Exsurco does not set out standards for what solution should go, what solution the skin should go into. That is based on your SOPs with your contracted skin processing agency. Where would the placement of the non-dominant hand on the amalgatome be more effective? In my experience, once everyone's comfortable, they find a place where they want their non-dominant hand. Your dominant hand would be the one pressing the lever down. The non-dominant can go across the top, under the depth gauge, across the little bridge between the collar and the depth gauge. That helps enable your tilt. Some of the male recovery technicians with larger hands tend to hold the depth knob with their thumb and index finger, kind of like a saddle, a Western saddle, with just that sticking up in the middle. Some of the women hold it more like myself and put their hand across the top. Your hand is safe across the top of the Amalgatome MD. Never reach under, and always ensure that your dominant hand holding the lever, the index finger is stopping at the collar, and you will always be away from hurting yourself. With that said, I want to say happy Donate Life Month, and thank you very much for tuning in.